Very exciting. We're being joined by Chris Kennedy today. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Hey, Anthony.
So let's start at the very beginning. Where'd you grow up? Did you start playing? When did that all start happening? Give us a rundown from the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Richmond. I grew up right during like the hotbed of basketball in Richmond. Like the first time I went and saw a really big basketball game was the 1984 BC High School Boys Provincial Championships when Steveston beat Richmond High in the final. And so that was kind of my era growing up. I'm a grad of 91. And so I played high school, not very well. I was kind of mediocre in high school. But I loved the game. Everybody, it seemed like Richmond was the center of basketball. I don't think people really fully grasped how big it was in Richmond back then. It was the center of basketball in the mid to late 80s and the early 90s. And so really early on I was playing, but I would ref right from grade 8 on. I was a referee. And then by grade 9, I was already going back and coaching the grade 7 team at my old elementary school. Anything I could do to be around the game was super important.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about that first game you went to. Who was playing? Do you remember? How'd you get there? What made you decide to go watch the game? Give me a rundown.
Yeah, it shows how like one person makes a difference. My grade 5 teacher, Mr. Nakanishi, took us out during the school day and to go watch the BC High School Boys Provincials at the Agronome. And we were watching, and Steveston and Richmond High it was in the prelims. We were playing back-to-back games that day. And so we stayed and watched both their teams play. And so those are the things that sometimes people say, oh, well, it's a hassle to take kids out, or why do it during the school day? Like I can vividly remember that day of grade 5 going to the Agronome and watching and thinking this is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. These are like people just a few years older than me and they're getting to play at this place. I go, I want to be around this. It was that day that turned me on to basketball.
Right. And what's funny is I had the exact same thing happen in grade 7 with Fabio Battisti. And it's funny, I remember my buddy Miles got a hot dog. He had enough money for a hot dog. You used to go to the Agronome and it was like the place to go. And you don't see that much anymore. Teachers taking kids out to games. I guess there's so many loopholes that people got to get through to go do that stuff. But I mean, what an impact it's made on both of our lives. So that's kind of interesting that happened.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's been lost, right? When the whole school used to come to games and to think of it like we were like an elementary school went to go watch the high school teams go play at the provincials. That's it just doesn't happen now. So cool.
Yeah. Okay. So you start coaching while you're there. You're coaching while you're playing. Then you get your own team. When are you coaching an actual high school team?
So it's after I graduate high school, I'm in university. I start coaching at McRoberts, and I start with this group in grade 8. And like a little bit of, I think coaching is a little bit of luck. Like you luck into a really good group, and it just happened that the year I'm showing up to do the grade 8s is like a really good group of athletes that I get to follow through. And so I follow them through in grade 8, 9, and 10, and we end up coming 3rd at provincials in junior boys in grade 10. And I thought I knew everything about coaching then. I'm 21 years old, or 20 years old, and I'm the 3rd. We're winning 3rd at the junior boys provincials, and I've got this all figured out, right? And I don't think I fully appreciated just the luck that I had. That good players make you look like a good coach.
Totally.
A lot of the time.
I know that feeling. Believe me. So then you end up taking that team. Are you coaching senior with that group, or?
Yeah, and so just at that time, Richmond is switching from junior highs and senior highs to high schools, and so that group is the first group that goes through as they're just a grade 11 group. The first group of grade 11s in the high school at McRoberts. So I just take them over, and then I follow them through into grade 12, and I become the senior boys coach there for the next 5 years.
Right, and I've heard some Chris Kennedy as a young guy had some big runs at the tournament. So that's got to be that group, correct?
So yeah, we get our in 1998 is probably our best run. That's the year of Pasha Bain's big group at Richmond High. There's this great group at Van College. Carson Graham has this group with Paris Jackson on it, and so we end up we go in there seated 14th and knock off Abbey on the first day. And I still remember they brought their whole school. I still remember getting pelted with pennies after the game as we're leaving, and they're just chucking pennies at all of us. The game ended up being a bit of a blowout, so they had nothing else to do. They're chucking stuff during the game, and they're hammering us on the way out. But yeah, we end up coming 4th in 98, make a good run, play Richmond High in the semifinals that year. and then make it back again the next year, lose out to White Rock Christian in '99, the year that they win it. And I parlay that a little bit. I have the success, and then I get hooked in at that same time. I'm doing the provincial team too, and so Pasha Baines and those and Paris Jackson, all those guys, I have them on the provincial team. That just right before we end up playing at provincials that year.
That's unbelievable. What a story. And just, I would imagine the atmosphere of two Richmond schools playing in the semifinals at the Agrodome must have been just electric.
So just incredible. And I love going back and looking at the photos, because you can see people, how deep they are on the concourse level. Like the seats are all full, and there are about 5 or 6 people deep watching the game. And there was a whole bunch of controversy back then. So this was around recruiting and kids not going to their local schools, and so they were a loaded up group of talent. And we kind of had the leftover group, largely, and a lot of younger kids, and again got kind of lucky. But it was a David and Goliath kind of match in the semifinals, and we kept it tight through half. They ended up pulling away in the second half. But yeah, just like it's still vivid, super memories. Just in terms of like how some things have changed. I can still remember like every single CBC, CTV, with all the cameras, they're all there at the game. They're all doing live before they're going live with their sports, and they're interviewing coaches and interviewing players on their 6 o'clock news as the game. We had a 7:30 game that night, and we're doing interviews. Our kids are doing interviews at 6:45 on the local news before we go play. It was it was so cool to be part of.
Totally. And you know what the funny thing is like we've lost a lot of that media attention, but I'm pretty sure that stuff would draw better than the stuff they're putting on TV right now anyway. Like I feel like people actually care about that stuff instead of the same old boring stuff that they keep running over and over again. I think those stories are cool. I think people go out of their way to watch that, but anyway, whatever. So now at this time, everybody as a young coach, you tend to find somebody that you look up to, somebody that you're trying to, mold yourself from, trying to find your information. Who are you kind of looking up to at this point?
So locally, I'm watching what both Paul Eberhardt's doing at McNair and what Bill Disbrow is doing at Richmond, and there are little bits of them I liked. I liked how Paul's teams always got up the floor and they always ran, and I liked how Bill let his teams make decisions. And then I'll tell you what I did though. Now I'm in university, and I'm living in the UBC library, because I found that they have this is pre-internet, so they have all these books. And I begin to find, I find the book about the Princeton offense and about these things. And I've just become I'm obsessed with just trying to learn about all of these different structures and patterns, and trying to see, are there things that other teams aren't doing locally where I can grab them and apply them. And so it would be a different look than what everybody else is doing. Because I think one of the challenges is you end up, you're right, that everybody was running that fast break stuff that Eberhardt was running for a while. And everybody was running the same stuff other people were. Everyone was running the flex because of Rich Goulet. And so I would go to the UBC library every day after class and work and try and do research to try to find stuff that other people weren't doing.
Okay, so let's talk about UBC right now. So you go to UBC, you end up getting your degree. What'd you get your degree in?
So I have a bachelor's degree in geography and English.
Okay, and then you ended up subsequently, you're working on your master's now. Or no, you've got your master's, you're working on your doctorate now. What'd you get your master's in?
I get my education degree then at UBC, and then pretty early in my teaching career, my second year, I begin my master's. I get a master's through San Diego State. And so I go down there, I do distance ed before pre-online during the year, and I go down there in the summers and get my master's in educational leadership through San Diego State.
Go Aztecs. Now, you end up finding yourself you go get a job as a teacher. Give us kind of the runway from you being a teacher to now you're a superintendent. So where'd you start as a teacher, vice principal, principal? Give us the runway.
Yeah. So I start in '96 as a teacher at McRoberts, and so I'm really lucky. Those principals who will go and get the people they want to get, and we had a principal that would go get people. I'd been coaching at the school, and she said, "Well, we're going to find you a job." And so I'm telling you, I'm a socials English teacher, and my first teaching load was all math and science because that was the job. And then she said, we'll figure it out. We'll find you people that can help you. And she partnered me up with people that helped me through that first year as I'm teaching Math 8, Math 9, Science 8, and, because she knew that I was bringing something to the school. And so I spent 5 years teaching at McRoberts, and we have a great run in basketball, and I end up getting to teach law and history and the things that I'm actually trained in. And then I go and I become the vice principal at Riverside Secondary in Coquitlam. And so I spend 2 years there. And then at that point, there was 20 elementary school principals retired in the same year, and they didn't have enough vice principals to cover. And so they came to the secondary vice principals and go, do any of you want to be an elementary principal? And so I put up my hand and go, well, I'm 29 years old. I don't want to do the same job forever. I've never been and trained in elementary, but I go and become an elementary principal. So glad I did it. I think sometimes you got to take advantage of these interesting opportunities that come up. And so I end up going there. I only get to go 1 year at Rochester Elementary, home of the Rockets, for a year in Coquitlam. And then the principal at Riverside leaves, and I'm back in as principal there, and I get to spend 3 years there. And it's a great school, and that's where I meet Paul Langford, and I meet the Karkner family. Mike's kids are going through there at that time, and there's a number of basketball families. It's a really nice fit on the sports side for me. And then it's again those you take advantage of the opportunities that come. I would never have applied on the job in West Vancouver. And the job's closed. Well, closed on a Friday, I find out. The superintendent calls me on the Monday and goes, I heard about you. Are you interested? And I go, well, why would I want to come to West Vancouver? My idea of West Vancouver is it's really conservative. It's not progressive. And he goes, well, we need to change that. And he goes, I'm only going to be superintendent for a couple more years. And so I go out, meet with him, and I end up getting the job as assistant superintendent. And so now I'm 32 or so years old, and I'm assistant superintendent. And so the trajectory is usually, it's happened really quick, but I've just kind of always just said yes to really interesting opportunities. I come here, I get 3 years as assistant superintendent, and become, I get told that you'll be the next superintendent. And then at 36, I'm a superintendent, youngest superintendent in the province. Now here I am 10 years later, and I'm still doing the gig at 46.
Are you still the youngest superintendent at 46?
I still might be the youngest superintendent. I'm also the second longest serving out of the 60 in the province, though.
Oh wow, that's pretty good. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Now, let's transition to coaching your kids. So obviously, anybody who follows you on Instagram sees that you're doing a million things at the same time, and it's just go, 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 go. So talk about the first experience you had coaching your kids in basketball.
Yeah, and so when there aren't programs for your own kids, I think you end up trying to build them. And so we ended up building, there was a couple basketball guys out in Richmond, and we started to build a mini basketball program, RYBL, Richmond Youth Basketball, for, it's a program that's kind of been established, but we really get involved and put a lot of energy into it. And so Elizabeth is in preschool, 4 years old. We began working with her and a group of boys and girls all about that same age, and sort of follow them through over the next 7 or 8 years in this Richmond Youth Basketball program.
So you start with Richmond Youth. What other sports have you been wrangled into coaching? Anything else, or just you kind of?
Absolutely. So you coach everything, right? So I've coached soccer. I've been the president of the swim club. I've helped out with the track and field. I feel like there are only so many people who are doing all the volunteer work in our world, and so you end up coaching all of the teams. And it's hard to coach your own kids. In some ways, it's a different enjoyment actually coaching other people's kids. It's easier in some ways, and it's also nice for your kids to be coached by other people. But in so many instances, there just aren't other people stepping up. And I feel like that's something that shifted when I was younger in school. There were lots of community coaches or teacher coaches, and you would assume that other people would take care of your kids and you took care of other people's kids. But it's not true anymore. Now you got to look out for your kids, or they're going to have nobody. And so I kind of have come to realize that as they've gone through. My wife and I always have to be ready to step in, because more often than not, there aren't other people willing to step up.
Yeah, and you know what? It's fun. People are like, well, why do you spend so much time coaching? It's like I don't know, I like it.
Yeah.
It's actually enjoyable. I don't think
people realize how much money it costs us. You know, like they go like all the like you're not getting rich coaching, right? And you end up putting in so much resource into you're buying the kids Slurpees after games and all of this stuff. Like you're traveling all the time, but like it's like it you know, other people go to the bar or other people like to go golfing. I like to coach basketball.
Yeah.
I like to hang out with kids in the gym.
Well, you know what? I think it actually keeps you energized too. I think it keeps you fresh. You kind of get to understand. You know, like I found out what TikTok was coaching basketball. Like, you know, I don't have a TikTok account, nor do I want one, but I know what it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little more relevant than I would be if I didn't. And I kind of get what's going on in the community and what's happening. And I think that it all adds up together. So now you're coaching at McMath the last few years. You're now what's your plans going forward? You're gonna coach your other. So Liz is graduating. Obviously, you're now moving to the next kids. You helping out.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I'll keep helping out at McMath with at least both my sons are wanting to play, and then I'm really liking what I'm doing with the younger VK group, and we'll follow up with my younger daughter in VK. I see my basketball coaching career. There's sort of three acts. There was the first act, which was kind of McRoberts before I had kids, and now I'm kind of in the second act, making sure my kids, who if they want to play, are supported. And then I'm actually also really looking forward to the third act, which is once my kids come through the system, I'll be re-engaged, you know, whether I'm coaching a team in West Van or I'm coaching a team in Richmond, or I'm really looking forward to that third act where I know I'm still going to be involved in coaching, but it will be after my kids have gone through the system. And like, I'm a lifer. I think, and I'll be 30 years from now still involved. So
now let's go back to when you were, I believe, president of the BC Boys Basketball Association, correct?
Yes.
Tell us about that experience, kind of overseeing and helping with all the work that everyone's doing. There's a lot of different types of people that are part of that association, and kind of having to work with everybody and get it together. Talk about that challenge and what that was like.
Yeah. So first of all, why I got involved was you see these other really good people, Ken Winslade, and who've given their John Bewis at the time. Other people have given so much to it. Like as much as I love basketball in the game. I also just love the event of basketball. I love the idea of these opportunities for people in the competition. And so right after we competed in 98 and 99, I talked to Ken Winslade to go, I'd love to keep helping out. Like, you know, we might be here, we might not. And so began to help out a bit. And I think that people appreciate that I have the ability to bring different groups of a wide range of people kind of together. And so I think it also helped that I was a generational shift for BC High School Boys. And so I was really pleased. Why I was president of BC High School Boys is when we were the first time to ever get high school basketball on Sportsnet, national TV deal. And so, you know, it's so different now because everything gets streamed, but we end up with this deal with Sportsnet, and this is all new for me. Like I'm a high school vice principal at the time. I'm negotiating a deal, and we ended up paying. I think we had to pay $20,000 to Sportsnet to show it, and then we had to go sell advertising. And so I'm working with our people to go back to Gatorade and Adidas, and having to get ads and tell them they got to put them on. You know, they got to be in via beta. Is it VHS and beta? They all had to be in beta. Video cassettes. I had to get their ads sent to me. I'd send them off to Sportsnet. It was actually kind of cool to get that happening, and and that's transitioned now into all the streaming that you can watch games everywhere. But at the time, like, we were the only high school basketball game you could watch nationally in the country. So everyone across Canada could watch the high school boys basketball finals, which was then at the Agrodome and really cool. And then I was also, and then towards the end of my time being involved with the BC High School Boys was that transition to Langley Event Center. And so, the challenge of these events that are long-standing is you have to have respect for the traditions, but always have to be looking around the corner for how to innovate and where we go next. I think some spend so much time focused on their tradition that they end up dying out. But vice versa, if you just focus on the new, you don't value the tradition, it kind of loses the mystique and the aura, which is so attached to so many of like the BC High School Boys tournament in our province.
Yeah, you invited me to the dinner this year when they had the like anniversary dinner, and just seeing the lining up of all the teams from the beginning that have won the championship, and seeing all the different winners, and then listening to people come up on stage and speak, and then obviously the Winslades have kind of done some unbelievable thing, and Jason he kind of just went down his his dad's house and went through all the old stuff and put together, the radio broadcasts from like 50 years ago or whatever, 60 years ago. And
Right.
he's got every score sheet of every game from and it's like, holy smokes, these people have gone out of their way to like legitimately make this the best event that it could possibly be. And it's like, you don't see that in other things. Like this is next level, and kind of being a small part of that seems like a very cool thing. Like you were president of that, and you were part of that. You coached in that tournament, and it seems like an unbelievable experience to be a part of, and something you remember forever, I would imagine.
Right.
I would imagine you could probably coach another 30 years, and you could give me a full rundown of every player that was on that McRoberts team that you coached the first time you went.
Oh, for sure. And it's important for all of us who are in coaching. Never underestimate just how important this moment is for the kids that are part of it, right? I think when we look back over the last few summers with VK, never underestimate that those are moments that those kids are going to remember forever.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have other teams. And we actually get to do it again. And so you have to always remember this is their one shot. And so like that's why as coaches, like I got to be all in all the time, because this is their one window. Like I might do this another 30 years and I might have 30 more cracks at this, but they get one. And so we got to treat it like that with our kids and be so invested in them.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I'm starting to get old enough now where I get to see kids that I coached 15 years ago, and that they remember it. They remember everything about it. They don't remember who their English teacher was. They remember their basketball teams. They remember the stuff that they were a part of back in the day. So let's do this. Let's go back in time. You get to give young Chris Kennedy a little bit of advice. What are you telling him? Are you giving him anything, or are you just saying, you know what, Chris, you're gonna be okay. Keep going.
If I'm going back in time, I would. I would not be so confident in my coaching abilities. The other thing I would do around coaching is that I now I want credit far less than I did then. There was, when you're young and you're in your early 20s, you somehow, like, it's tied to your identity. Like our team didn't win. I won as the coach. And like, they become so less important as you get older. You realize you want to make it all about the kids. I think some coaches, and we see that now, right? They make it about themselves. And so I think I really moved that it became less and less about me and more about the kids as time went on. And so I think my advice to young me would be, make sure that the kids are the centerpiece. That when the reporter says they want to do a story about you, you go tell them 3 great stories they could do about kids on your team, right? I think that's what we do. That's what I would do now.
Absolutely. Well, it's worked out great. I'm excited to see you help out with ACOB on that McMath team next year. I'm excited to see it. Hopefully we get a little bit of a summer here, and we can do something with these VK kids, this U11 team you got. I was excited to see them play. We got some good athletes down there.
They're going hard. They're going hard twice a week, and they'll be probably watching this video. They're coming to the U17 practices too.
I like it. We'll take it. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll get this out there, and kids, hopefully we can inspire another young coach to step in and be a lifer like the people that we are. So, hopefully we can get another one like us. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Anth.